Okay, so if you hear, for example, the word, for example, men, okay, men, you will be transcribing the sounds that you hear, right? M, E, N, right? So N, and N. So in this case, you will be doing something like this. Right? E and N. So those are the three sounds that you hear in the plural form of man, which is men, right? So you hear that and you transcribe those three sounds. What happens in phonetic transcription? In phonetic transcription, as Edgar said, what you do is this. Okay? So now you're not going to transcribe in slashes, but now using square brackets. In phonetic transcription, the difference is obviously you will be transcribing the sounds that you hear, right? So again, these three sounds, men, right? However, when you put the square brackets, immediately you need to go a little more farther, like deeper into the transcription. So now what you will do is, in square brackets, what you will do is you will start analyzing each sound and then see if surrounding sounds somehow influence the pronunciation of any of the three sounds that are written already. Okay, so we get the the surrounding sound is e. E does not influence at all. Okay, so we keep moving on, and then we have the e here with two surrounding sounds, before it and then after it, right? So obviously, in order for you to do the phonetic transcription, I will give you all the rules that you need to apply. Okay, so you will have the theory so that you can put it into practice. Okay, so in this case, the does not influence the e. However, the sound, since it is nasal, it does influence the sound e. In this case, it influences the sound e in two different ways. Okay, first of all, it makes the e nasalized, as I explained last class, when you pronounce a vowel with some nasalization characteristics. Okay, and then also it will make the e sound a little longer. Okay, so in other words, in phonetic transcription, you will include all the details about all the possible phenomena that apply or influence every single sound in the transcription. Okay, but don't worry about this one. Don't worry about phonetic transcription. Okay, what we are more concerned about today, okay, is this one, phonemic transcription. So you will be only putting the sounds that you hear, right? The sounds that you hear or the sounds that you pronounce between slashes. So don't worry about square brackets. Don't worry about details. You don't have to include any of those. Okay, something very important about transcription, as I said last class, is that all the symbols that you will use should be written in lowercase letter. So you cannot write something like this. Okay, even if you are transcribing the name Bill, for example, right? So you say Bill, you don't transcribe it like this. This is wrong. Okay, so you should not include any capital letter. It should be always, right, in lowercase level, even if it is a proper name, even if it is just let's say an abbreviation or something like that, you will still transcribe it like this. Okay, so Bill, that is the transcription of the name. Another thing that you should take into account when transcribing is you will always, right, you will only include the sounds that you hear. It doesn't matter how many letters are in spelling. You should not include the letters in spelling. You should just pay attention to the pronunciation. That's what we are transcribing here. Okay, it is just like when you are starting when you're starting the bachelor's program and you don't know phonetics, but then you make your own pronunciation system. Okay, and then you start writing something like, oh, house, how do you write house, and then you start saying something like this, right? Because this is something that you are familiar with in Spanish. It's exactly the same. Here you will be transcribing the sounds that you hear, however, not using this, but using the phonetic symbols. Okay, so let me give you an example of this. Okay, an example of this is the word brought. Okay, brought. How many sounds do you hear?
I guess 2.
I'm sorry?
I guess 2.
2? Does anybody hear?
Maybe just 1.
Look at
maybe
how
3.
I would say 2.
Okay, look at how many letters it has, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right?
We got
So
B, O, and T.
okay. Remember, the word is not bought but brought. Okay, the past tense of bring. Okay, so there is an R here. So the first sound that you hear, let's start over here, right? So do you hear the B, brought? Yes. So you hear the B, right? So you transcribe the B, brought. Do you hear the R? Okay, you do hear the R, right? So you say bro. Now it is time to transcribe the vowel, which is the most challenging part. I will give you some hints and some clues, some tips. Like for example, in this case, believe it or not, guys, the irregular past tense form OUGHT or AUGHT always, guys, always will be transcribed as ought. Okay, this is a regular verb past tense form, which is like for example, fight, fought, think, thought, teach, taught, catch, caught, always with O. Never say count, never say boat for the past tense of buy, for example. Never say boat because the O is the U is not pronounced. So you only pronounce O. Okay, so in this case we say bring, we say brought. Okay. However, there is a T at the end. Look at the GH. You don't pronounce the GH. You don't say brogged. Okay. So the GH is not pronounced, so you just go for the T. Now you have the transcription of the word brought. Okay, this is remember, this is just in slashes, not including any of the details. Okay? We will be seeing the details after we see all the rules that apply for all the details. Okay, so how do you know which vowel sound you should transcribe? That's very, very complicated, right? Okay, last class we were talking about the two different E's, right? remember, well, if you want if you want to use or keep using the terms long and short, you can do it. However, remember that the difference is not the length of the vowel. Okay, the difference is simply the tension in the vowel. So one is E, very tense. You feel the tension in your muscles, in your jaw, right? And the other one is E, right? E, E. One is more relaxed than the other. Okay, there is something very important here.
Professor,
Yes.
a question before you move on. How many sounds did you have in the first one?
I'm sorry. How many sounds do I have where?
In the one that you just transcribed.
Brought? 4.
Yeah.
4 sounds. B-R-O-T, right? Brought. So 4 sounds. If it had been the past tense of buy, bought, then you only transcribe 3 sounds. B-O-T, right? So say B-O-T, bought. Okay, so just 3 sounds. But in that case, there was an R, so it's 4 sounds. Any other questions? Okay, good. So here, guys, there is something that you need to know. First of all, the E sound is usually transcribed with combination of vowel letters in spelling. For example, I would say bean. Okay, bean. I would say, for example, hold on a second. Let me mute. There you go. Okay, bean. I would say, for example, clean. Okay, as you can see, there is a combination of, it doesn't have to be EA all the time. It could be sometimes double E, as in feel. Okay, for example, this, which is more relaxed, is also more relaxed in spelling. Okay, because here E is like 90% of the time represented in spelling by the letter E. So you say, for example, fill, okay, bill, you say till. It's usually represented by this single letter, okay? I am stating a rule that does not apply obviously to 100% of the words, but if you keep this in mind, at least you will have 85% of the time the transcription right. Okay, what happens, there is a rule also in phonetics, there's a rule that says, because I already explained this, right? So there's a rule that says that before R, always, okay, before R, always transcribe a lax vowel. Okay, so before R, it is always lax. If you know this, there is no word in English or no vowel in English that happens before R that you will not know how to pronounce or how to transcribe. Before R, there is always a lax vowel. You cannot transcribe a tense vowel, even if it is a combination of letters like this one. Okay, let me give you an example. Based on the rule I already gave you, a word like, for example, a word like dear, okay, fear, let's say beer, okay? These 3 words should be pronounced or should be transcribed with tense E, right? Because there's a combination of letters. And most of the time, the combination of letters mean the tense sound. However, what happens later is an R sound. So immediately, you don't even have to think about it. Immediately, if it is an R sound, then you transcribe deer as okay. You don't put there you go. You don't put a tense sound, even though it is a combination of letters. You don't put a tense sound because there is an R after it. Okay.
Question, Professor.
Yes.
It's Chua sound considered lax vowel then?
Okay. Remember that chua, a, for example, those sounds don't have this mix like let's say this relation between lax and tense. If they don't have this relation, they can let's say behave okay as both tense and lax. In this case, usually chua sound is taken as a lax vowel because chua sound usually happens in a very unstressed position or not so emphatic. However, you gotta be careful because there are 4 different types of chua sound. You will see that when we see square brackets. Okay, there are 4 different types of chua. The first one, which is the most common and known, is this one, which is like an upside down A. The other one is this one. The other one is this one. And the last is this one. So those 4 forms, or let's say these 3 forms, are just variations of the main chua that we know, which is this one. Okay. However, these 2 occur in stressed position. For example, this one, the first one, is the one that you see in but. Okay, in the conjunction, but. Okay, since but is a monosyllabic word, the only vowel that is included in the word will be stressed, right? So this one is chua sound, but in stressed position. This one, for example, I don't know if you can hear. If you can see it, can you see it? Yes. Okay, this one is the one that happens in first. Okay, you say first, second, third. Well, first is transcribed with this one. Okay, and it is also stress position. These other 2 are unstressed position. This one here happens in all the words with the suffix er. Okay, the suffix er, like for example in comparatives, like bigger than, for example, right? You don't say more big, you say bigger than. So bigger, when you add the er, is this one. The suffix, the noun suffix er, like when you have a verb and then you add the er to make it a noun, the person that does that action, for example, play, player, teach, teacher, then it is also with this one. Okay, and then this one, which is just the unstressed chua, like the one in about. Okay, the first vowel in about. This one. So we will talk about the chua in a minute, but this is just an overall description of the 4 sounds. So always remember, if you come across with a word with the R sound after the vowel, immediately think about, oh, there should be a lax vowel here, okay, before the R sound. Example, let's take now the 2 U sounds, and you'll see it happens the same. You will see, for example, the word school. There is a combination of letters. Usually, the combination of letters is tense. usually, not all the time, but usually. So you will transcribe it like this. Okay, school. However, if you put an R here, like for example, or let's say let's use another one. Let's say this one. Okay, sure. You don't say sure. Okay, you don't say sure with the tense because this R sound immediately tells you, oh, here there should be a lax vowel. So you immediately change it into the lax vowel. Okay, sure. Always. Okay, there is no tense vowel happening before an R sound. Never. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, I'm going to give you another tip in pronunciation and also in transcription. Okay, there is E in spelling that usually occurs at the end of some words. Okay, for example, make, right? That's an example. Let's say mute, another example. If you take a look at this E in spelling, you will realize that this E is mute. Okay? You don't pronounce the E. You don't say makey, you don't say mutey, right? So you simply don't pronounce it. When this mute or silent E happens at the end of some words, usually what happens is that the previous vowel takes the pronunciation of the name of the vowel in the alphabet. Listen again. Let me okay. So here we have the letters, the vowel letters in the alphabet, right? So the first one is called A, then E, I, O, U. Those are the names of the letters, right? What happens in these words with a silent E at the end? Usually, you get the pronunciation, the previous letter takes the pronunciation of the name in the alphabet. In this case, A, okay? This letter is called A. So with this silent E, this letter here will or the sound will take the name of the letter. So here we say A, we say make, U, A, E, I, O, U, okay, U, silent E, then this one is pronounced U, mute, okay? This one is mute. It happens with this too. For example, okay? The I, right? The I is the name of the letter in the alphabet, right? So I, silent E, pile, okay? Immediately takes the name of the alphabet. So always keep that in mind. I can also give you an example with O and with all the letters, right? So I'll say, for example, silent E, then this one is pronounced O, okay? Just like the name of the alphabet, so note. However, guys, look at these two words. Okay? How do you pronounce the first one?
Cake.
Great. Okay, cake. There is a silent E, and this silent E immediately gives you the name of the letter in the alphabet. So you will say this. Remember that this symbol alone is AE. Okay, even though some people transcribe a little lax E here, it's up to you. It doesn't make any difference, but you know, you can transcribe it or just leave it like that and still A. How do you pronounce this one then?
Care.
Okay, care, right? Care. What happens here? There is a silent E, right? If there is a silent E, this sound should be pronounced as AE, right? Because I already gave you the rule, and then you will say, you know what, this rule is inconsistent because this guy is telling me something and it doesn't apply to all the words. Okay, let's do something. Let's transcribe it as cake and then see what happens. If we transcribe this word like this, then we are violating a rule that I already told you, which is before R, you cannot have a tense vowel, and A is a tense vowel, right? So since that rule is mandatory, you cannot have that, then you should find another sound that is similar enough to this one that should not be here or cannot be here, and then you replace it. So in this case, the sound that you will replace it with is the lax E. Okay? That's why this word is not pronounced care, but care. Okay? Any questions?
Professor, I have a
Yes.
excuse me, Professor. I have a question regarding to the name or the word bill. For instance, in English, some of us are aware. In English, we have different meanings according to the environment of the word occurs. For example, the proper name bill could be the same or could have the same pronunciation of the word bill for billete. Or
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Exactly the same?
Exactly the same. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So if you're gonna say something like Bill bought a bill,
yes,
for example, right? Let's say that there is a collectionist selling bills.
My question was because I used to hear in American English pronunciation of certain people that they say Bill Goldberg, Bill Clinton, Bill. I hear Bill and I hear Bill for the other for billete, and that
I see.
was yes, that was my question.
Sometimes it happens depending on where you go.
Mm-hmm.
It's
the
it's
region
like,
of in the country. I don't know.
Yeah, the region. Sometimes they put some emphasis because that person is a very famous person, is somebody that is recognized. So some people make some emphasis when pronouncing. It's like for example,
Yeah, I got it. Your point. Thank you, Professor.
Yeah, like Donald Trump, right? So if you have a neighbor, you will not say like, oh, that's Donald Trump, or that's Donald, right? You simply, that's Donald, right? So you will not make like the emphasis to give this person an importance, recognition. So yes, this is what happens here. It happens with the other letters too. Okay. Yes.
Professor, excuse me. What about the brand Nike? Nike. Many people say it's Nike some others say it's Nike.
Yeah, well, in that case, that's a good point. In that case, when there is a name of a brand or a product or a company name or something private, the person can pronounce it the way they want it to be pronounced, no matter the spelling, right? In this case, in the US, they call it Nike. However, in the rest of the world, we call it Nike, right? And the people that know or that have studied English and have never been to the US will always call it Nike, because the form or the shape of the word suggests that this vowel here should take the name of the alphabet, because this for us is a silent E. However, the owners of the company or the owners of the brand, they have the last word. They can call it the one they want, the way they want. Okay, so that's what happens.
So that is like an example of a free variation, right? Like,
Yes, exactly. Like you're not making a new word. You're just pronouncing it differently, right? So just like city and city, you're not making a new word. It's simply a pronunciation change. In fact, I would say that they should take into account change in the pronunciation from Nike to Nike, because I think more people around the world know it as Nike than people that call it like Nike. But anyways, so let me give you another example, right? I can even add here so you can see how it works, right? This is the last example. So here we have the first one, which is pole, right? Pole, silent E. Immediately, this previous vowel takes the name of the alphabet, so you would say pole. Okay, remember that this symbol alone is O already. But here, you cannot do the same, because if I say bower, which is what logically comes into our minds when we see this, then we are violating the other rule I told you. So it cannot be bower, because this is a tense vowel. I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry about it. Okay. So you cannot say bower, because it's a tense vowel, and tense vowel never occur before the sound R. So here we should change it for another sound that is similar, but in this case should be lax, so it can fit this position. So that's why you say, oh, I am bored. Oh, that is boring, right? Or the past tense of bear, okay? Say, oh, that is a situation I need to bear with, right? Say, oh, I bore with that situation. I just say I bore with that situation. So bore is with O, just like score will be with O as well. Okay? Any questions? Yes.
Does the same thing applies to table and phone?
Well, in the case of table, yes. Okay, it kind of like apply there. Even though table does have a vowel sound there, it should have a schwa sound. There are two different ways to transcribe table. One of them is like this, and the other one is with the syllabic U. However, the rule does not take the syllabic here. You will see the rule. In order for it to be syllabic here, they should be an alveolar sound, not a bilabial sound. But some dictionaries, you might probably see in some dictionaries this transcription. It is possible to table, right? However, you know, for the nature of this sound, there is always a little vowel here. But maybe in the case of table, it could be influenced by that little vowel. Okay, another tip I want to give you is, let's talk about the R. I mean the A, right? The A sound, right? It's interesting that this letter here, A, has so many different pronunciations. It could be A, as I explained before, right? It could be A, it could be O, it could be A, right? It could even be E, as in care. So it's interesting how the A sound changes. I think the A sound is the one with more pronunciation variations in English. Okay, the A letter. So I'm gonna give you some tips about the A. I'm sorry about the A letter, right? A followed by R. It's always, well, obviously care is different because it has a silent E. But words that have A followed by R, it's usually, most of the time, R. Example, sorry. Example, car, far, bar, okay? All those will be with A. A letter, right? Followed by double R. Well, let's equals A. Example, carry, Barry, Larry, okay? A followed by L. Okay, A followed by L. Usually O. As in ball, call, fall, mall, small. Okay? Even if the L is silent in the word, like talk, walk, stalk. Okay? Usually. Here, there might be some exceptions, just few exceptions, like the word war. Okay, like, oh, there is a war between Israel and whatever Palestina, right? So war. In that case, the W maybe influence the A, and then it takes the O sound there. But usually, this is what happens. Okay, star, spark, usually with A. Okay. These tips, if you know them, believe me, transcription is quite easy, and also obviously pronunciation. Remember that you know the symbols, you know the rules, not only for transcription. Okay, obviously you will want to transcribe the words well, or properly, but the most I would say functional aspect of phonetics is not transcribing sounds but pronouncing properly. Okay, so if you know this, believe me, you will pronounce words appropriately. I'm not saying you don't pronounce words appropriately. I am just saying that you will improve your pronunciation, improve your transcription, improve the knowledge of phonetics that you have. These are the things that you should give your students in case you have the chance to teach phonetics at some point. Okay. Do you have any questions?
Professor, I think that I'm going a little bit further, but in the example of, for example, the word, by the way, in there we can also have like in the bracket. I mean, if the phonetic transcription, that is going to be a schwa sound, right, or an R color vowel.
You said, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the word
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
said.
yeah. For example, in the word, word, you said that we are just for the matter of phonemic transcription, we are going to be dealing with the O sound.
Okay.
But then if we go or if we look for it in a dictionary, then we are going to have the schwa sound or the R color, which is the combination that you just explained.
Like
the
this,
schwa,
right?
yeah, that one. So
Yeah.
this is just for the matter of this.
Yes.
Okay.
The transcription of this in slashes will be okay. Then when you go into square brackets, you will now make a distinction between the different schwas. For the slashes, let's just use this schwa, okay? But obviously, if you go to the dictionary, you will find this. Sorry about it. Because dictionaries do make a distinction between the different types of schwas, even though they don't use square brackets and they don't include the other symbols. Okay, like they don't include the like vowel length here, for example, or anything like that. Okay, they just include the vowel length when it is a British dictionary and with an R-less speech. Like for example, word. If you find it in a British dictionary, you will find this. Because they don't pronounce the R, in this case called coda position, right? Which is after the vowel. They don't pronounce it. So in order for them to take away the R, they need to make the vowel longer to make the space or the timing for the R, right? Remember, this is the R. To make the timing for the R present, it's like, oh, there is an R there, but I don't pronounce it, so I need to make the vowel a little longer. So I would say instead of saying word, I would just make a space there, say would, right? Would. So they don't make the R sound there. But it's, yes, you're right. Here is a schwa sound, R color one, right?
Good morning, Professor.
Good morning.
Okay, I remember that in the bachelor, when we were studying that part specifically about talking schwa sounds, I remember the professor explained that every time we have a vowel in combination with the sound R, then immediately we get the symbol like it's like an F, the one that you draw, it's like an F. So in order not to complicate our lives, then we always, when we see a vowel with R, immediately we get that sound. I mean, the phonetical transcription is the one that is like an F. So I don't know if that is worth it still, or we have to change that.
No, if you need to transcribe the schwa sound, schwa plus R, and you use the other symbols I gave you, even if you have to transcribe the word but, right? But in slashes would be this, but in square brackets would be this. Even if you use this symbol, it's okay. Don't worry about it. However, not always do vowel sounds followed by R change into schwa sound. So you need to be careful careful with that, right? There's let me give you a tip about the schwa. Schwa does not have many tips as the A letter, right? So let me give you just maybe one or two tips. As I said before, the suffix er. Let me write here. Okay. The suffix er, either for comparatives, for making the noun out of a verb, all the er combinations, the es combination when pronounced, okay, when you are pronouncing the es, like watches, for example, the ed ending, even the est, okay, the est suffix, all of those can be transcribed with schwa, okay? So you will have, for example, tallest, that est can be with schwa. R, taller, bigger, player, teacher, maker, all those er will be with schwa. Es, like watches, okay, like plural forms or third person singular, will be with schwa. Schwaz, okay? And then the ed ending, when pronounced, the ed ending, obviously, because if you say talked, you're not pronouncing it. But when you say something like needed, then this ed ending will be with schwa. Another aspect that you should know about the schwa sound is mostly with the u in spelling, okay? Mostly with the u in spelling. When you hear a word written with u but sounding totally different from the u sound, believe it or not, like most of the time, like almost 100% of the time, will be schwa. Let me give you an example. If I say
umbrella,
exactly, like umbrella, like under, like but, like much, right? If I say, for example, this one, it's written with u, right? But you hear the sound u there. So you say pool, right? Pool. Oh, it sounds like an u, pool. So I will transcribe it with u. But if you have a word written, with u, right, and it does not sound like u, like here, you don't say much, right, or much, or anything like that. So you say much. Okay, you are not hearing an u anywhere. Then you will transcribe it with schwa. Obviously, in the dictionary, you will find this. Okay? You will transcribe it with schwa. Public, for example, you don't say public, you say public. Okay, public. Then public, pa, is schwa. Umbrella, judge, church, there are many words with this. Obviously, that does not mean that other letters cannot represent schwa. Obviously, they can. But I'm telling you some tips, okay, for you to know whenever you encounter a word like this.
Professor, I have a question.
Yes.
It's about the last explanation you gave about the EST, ER.
Yes.
And the past, the ED, right?
Uh-huh.
I've read and seen in many books they made it like a E instead of a schwa.
Yes.
Why does it happen? And there are many textbooks in
yes
here in Panama we use, and they tell us to do it with E. So
yes, you're right. Like, for example, teaches.
no, but with teaches I'm okay, but with the ED. like in studied or waited? Is it a schwa or a ed sound? Because in books, in textbooks, and even on internet, you find like that explanation. They say it is a ed instead of a schwa.
In fact, you can type both.
All right.
Or either one. Yes. What happens is that you don't know it until you pronounce this as it should have, as it should be pronounced, like a very lax sound. There is a rule in phonetics that says that very, very unstressed syllables can always be reduced to either schwa or lax e. Those two vowels are the ones that are more frequently pronounced in English. So what happens here is simply, again, free variation, okay? It's up to you. Some people pronounce it as it, some people pronounce it as it, okay? They sound similar, but it's simply free variation. What you should not do here, and this is something I really want to clarify, what you should not do here is pronounce this. Because I have seen, or I have heard a lot of people that see this, but they don't know how to pronounce the lax E, and they make it as E. So you hear people say need it, or you will say people saying, for example, oh, teaches or watches, right? And it should not be like that. You should pronounce the E sound as a very relaxed sound, very similar to an E sound, just like the one that we just like the one that you make when you say eat it, okay, it. So it sounds very similar to the schwa sound also, okay.
Professor, what I think also is what you just explained with that rule is when we talk. I mean, that's the way we talk. When we, join, when we link words, we tend to pronounce it closer to the schwa because we are making it like faster, and when we are using the accent and the rhythm, and then I think that what is actually what happens in the pronunciation of those words.
Yes, that's a good point. Yes, what happens here is that you make it so fast because it is an unstressed vowel. So unstressed vowels usually get reduced. Obviously, remember this is not what you should pronounce, right? So unstressed vowels get so reduced and let's say non-emphatic that the pronunciation is so fast that it's really hard to catch what you really pronounce. Obviously, what happens here is that in spectrograms, that's the only way people or linguists can tell the difference between it and it, because they are pronounced exactly the same, however, or pretty much the same. However, in spectrograms, you will see these people that pronounce this sound with the waves a little higher than for this sound. And that is what makes a difference. That's why linguists realized that the ed ending pronounced by speakers, by native speakers of the language, sometimes varies from schwade or it in some cases. Okay, it's like the pronunciation of the days of the week. Some people say, for example, Wednesday. Some people say Wednesday. Okay? It's also with the lax E. But look at this. It's Wednesday. Okay? Wednesday. It's not Wednesday with the tense E. So some people see that in the dictionary, and some people make a mistake of pronouncing the tense E at the end. And that is not the way. It should be A, or it should be lax E. Wednesday or Wednesday. Okay? So that is what I wanted to say about the schwa sound. So remember, U in spelling not sounding like an U, believe it or not, schwa, okay? You can find many examples in the dictionary. Any questions?
Yes, Professor. As a matter of, I mean, when we are transcribing the words, which symbol we should care about it in order to be, I mean, the most acceptable one?
You mean when transcribing the schwa?
Exactly.
Well, if you have to pick a schwa symbol that works for all the situations, then this one.
Perfect.
Because this is the actual symbol. The other ones are allophones of that symbol.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, this is like the main representation, and then the other ones are simply variations of the same sound. However, if you don't want to use this symbol,
that's the one I was talking about previously.
Yes, this is unstressed.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, that's like an ER, like player, maker, for example, right? This one. If you don't want to transcribe this, then you should transcribe this. So the R in the other symbol is included already in the transcription. Mm-hmm. But in this, if you're using this symbol, you're not including the R. Okay, so you should then use this one.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You're welcome. Okay, this is just transcription. Remember, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, thank you. Yes, I forgot that. Exactly. Some people mistakenly also pronounce it as you. I would say people saying, for example, enormous instead of enormous, okay? Or thoughtful instead of thoughtful, okay? Careful. So in this case, well, this is pretty much because the U is not pronounced as U, just like the previous rule I gave you, but this is also a suffix. So when you have suffixes like this, always schwa. How do you pronounce this? Or how do you transcribe this? Always like this. So don't break your heads trying to figure out like, oh, does it sound like an O, like fall, or does it sound like what? No, always you see this, you have half of the word already transcribed. If I say, yes, you're right. And thank you. Yes, my head is getting old now, so I kind of like forget things. But yes, you're totally right. Thank you so much. Okay. You see, the transcription is so easy. We already saw care. I told you that you should not write a tense vowel before R, so you say ke, care, and then simply add the suffix full with the schwa. That's it. It's just putting things together, and then you make the word. Careful. Okay? Good. Also, all the ion, either with T, it doesn't matter, T with S or double S, shun, information, education, mission, vision. This ion is always, it's always like this. Good. Thank you so much. Any questions?
Professor,
Yes.
Something else. I don't remember where a professor taught me, like also in long words, there is a tendency like having a lot of schwa sounds. If you don't,
Yes.
if you don't know how to pronounce it, and if it is a long word, you place schwa sounds.
Yes.
Like maybe the word like conversation or
Yes.
independence.
Exactly. Conversation. It does have two chua sounds there, right? What happens is when you have, let's say, 4-syllable words. Okay, when you have 4-syllable words, there are 2 syllables that will have stress. Therefore, there will be 2 unstressed syllables. Okay? In 4-syllable words, like for example, in that case, like conversation, right? Con, it's stressed. Ver is not stressed. Say is stressed. Shun is unstressed. When you have 4-syllable words, most likely, like probably 90% of the time, the 2 unstressed syllables will be chua. Okay? You might probably think about how can a word have 2 stressed syllables. Well, you will see that in the what do you call it? In the presentation today. I this is just half of the class. I will present also based on the information you provided about the prosodic signals. I will present some things about stress and things like that. Okay, so what happens is that there is a primary and a secondary, primary and secondary stress in long words in English, not in Spanish. Okay, so this is what happens. The unstressed syllables can be reduced to chua. So you're right. Any other questions? By the way, this is what happens with the word interesting, that some people pronounce it like interesting. They don't know if the stress is really in or tres, because it has primary and secondary stress. Okay, so some people hear tres as the stress syllable, and some other people say find it like in as a stress syllable. In fact, it should be interesting. Okay, but some people pronounce it like, oh, that sounds interesting. It's interesting. Okay. Well, I don't know if you have any other questions. As I said, it's impossible to have a rule in phonetics that covers or accounts for all the possible situations in transcription, because unfortunately, English is not a phonetic language like Spanish, for example. Spanish is a phonetic language. It means every single letter corresponds to a sound, right? So it's easy to just draw rules in Spanish, like, oh, you know what? This is always like this, because the I is always I everywhere. Or even for stress, like stress rules in Spanish is so easy. It's like, oh, you stress the last syllable if it ends in a vowel, or if it ends in N or S, if it is grave, whatever. If it ends in any other possible consonant sound, then you stress it. So it is so easy because Spanish has that phonetic, relation between letters and sounds. So it is very easy. In English, it's totally different. That's why pronunciation in English is way harder. However, grammar in English is totally, I would say, easier. Not to say totally easy, but yes, it's easier than Spanish. Any questions? Okay.